Hello again and welcome to episode 6 of the Boneyard. In the previous episode, I explained briefly about conspiracies and their discovery by means of examining conspiracy theories. Specifically, I went over the conspiracy that our government has been mining all digital data from American citizens and how it was at first nothing more than a theory, and subsequently mocked by our old friend, the mainstream media, as nothing more than a conspiracy theory. As I said before, this has been long suspected of our government by many people. I remember back in the 1970s hearing stories of the government listening into phone calls, especially if you spoke a keyword or a key phrase that tripped their systems, and as the conspiracy theory went, the monitoring was begun.
We need to develop a capacity to know what potential enemies are doing. The United States government has perfected a technological capability that enables us to monitor the messages that go through the air. Now, that is necessary and important to the United States as we look abroad at enemies or potential enemies. We must know. At the same time, that capability at any time could be turned around on the American people. And no American would have any privacy left. Such is the capability to monitor everything. Telephone conversations, telegrams, it doesn't matter. There would be no place to hide.
Well, as I said in episode 5, this is no longer a theory, but is now 100% public knowledge and fact, thanks to whistleblowers within the ranks of government that saw a perceived injustice going on. See something, say something, right? If that's what we get when we say something, my only recourse is to think that they want us to stay quiet when it concerns government and to only snitch where it concerns neighbors, friends, and yes, our own family members. Especially our own family members, as this is the group that the elite want to tear apart more than any other. But I will leave that for another time. I think that going over the Third and the Fourth Amendments would be well placed in this episode of the Boneyard, and a more perfect point in time in this country to examine them I could not imagine. The Third Amendment reads as follows. No soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law. The Third Amendment was written in response to quartering acts passed by the British Parliament during the American Revolutionary War, which allowed the British Army to lodge soldiers in private residences. Since the Revolutionary War, however, this amendment has never been used as a primary basis for any Supreme Court decision, simply because there has been little conflict on American soil and therefore has had little reason to be invoked as a primary basis for any such decisions. However, the Third Amendment has been invoked in a few instances as helping establish an implicit right to privacy in the Constitution. Justice William O. Douglas used the Third Amendment, along with other amendments in the Bill of Rights, as a partial basis for the majority decision in Griswold v. Connecticut in 1965. The case involved a Connecticut law that prohibited the use of contraceptives. By a vote of 7-2, the Supreme Court invalidated the law on the grounds that it violated the right to marital privacy. Justice Douglas specifically cited the Third Amendment in this case as implying a belief that an individual's home should be free from agents of the state. Free from agents of the state. This has actually been an issue recently. From Breitbart.com, July 7, 2013. Police arrested the Mitchell family in Nevada when the family refused to let the police take over their houses to observe the Mitchells' neighbors. The Mitchells have sued the city of Henderson and various police officials, claiming, among other things, that the police violated their rights under the Third Amendment to the Constitution. Anthony Mitchell lives on the same street as his parents, Michael and Linda Mitchell, in a suburb of Las Vegas. On July 10, 2011, police contacted Anthony to say that they were investigating his neighbors for domestic violence. The police said that they required stationing officers in Anthony's house to gain a tactical advantage. Anthony refused, saying he did not want to get involved. According to a disturbing news report, officers later arrived at Mitchell's house demanding entry. When he did not open the door, this report cites court documents as saying that the police broke through the door and treated Mitchell in a threatening and abusive manner, ordering him to the ground at gunpoint and using non-lethal force on Anthony and his pet dog. The report says police also forced themselves upon Mitchell's parents, and that they took control of both houses for most of the day, during which time they consumed food and drink and treated both houses as their residences. Judge Irving Kaufman stated in a case in 1982 regarding the case of Ingham versus Carey that with its historical origins in the English Bill of Rights of 1689, the Third Amendment of the United States Constitution embodies a fundamental value the founders of our republic sought to ensure after casting off the yoke of colonial rule, the sanctity of the home from oppressive governmental intrusion, and went on to quote from an earlier case that the notion that the home is a privileged place whose privacy may not be disrupted by governmental intrusions is basic in a free and democratic society. A sane, decent, civilized society must provide some such oasis, some shelter from public scrutiny, some insulated enclosure, some enclave, some isolated place. Now, some will say that the police are not soldiers. However, professional police in the modern sense had not been invented at the time of the framing and are obviously agents of the state, quickly becoming militarized and seemingly federalized.
Released a study called Overkill, the Rise of Paramilitary Police Raids in America. In it, they state that in 1997 alone, the Pentagon handed out 1.2 million pieces of military equipment to local police departments.
Furthermore, this could become a big issue during shelter-in-place events, such as what was seen after the Boston Marathon and the Boston bombing. Multiple cases of violations of the Third Amendment that occurred during the hunt for Yokar Tsarnaev, when police officers and U.S. soldiers invaded the homes of a Boston suburb, forcing the inhabitants out. But more than this even, I would think it arguable that the ability of the NSA to collect all of our digital information is tantamount to having an agent of the state inside the home without the owner's consent. A clear violation of the Third Amendment, and of course, as has already been acknowledged, is occurring right now with the PRISM Project and others, designed to gather every single bit of information and data that they can without the use of warrants. Now, as you can plainly see, the Third Amendment ties in very closely to the Fourth Amendment, which is absolutely being shattered, and reads as follows. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized. The systems that the NSA has in place to gather this data are in direct conflict with the Third Amendment, and especially so with the Fourth Amendment. Is not digital data a thing owned by a person? Is not email equivalent to regular paper mail? Are not Excel, PowerPoint, and any other private digital documents equivalent to papers? Is this not all housed either on our person or in our homes? As a matter of fact, this argument has already been decided from the looks of things and is just being ignored by our federal government. What the NSA is doing is also in direct violation of the Stored Communications Act. In the Stored Communications Act, 18 U.S.C.A. 2703, it states, contents of wire or electronic communications in electronic storage. A governmental entity may require the disclosure by a provider of electronic communication service of the contents of a wire or electronic communication that is in electronic storage in an electronic communication system for 180 days or less, only pursuant to a warrant issued using the procedures described in the Federal Rules of Criminal Procedure, or in the case of a state court, issued using state warrant procedures by a court of competent jurisdiction. It goes on to state that a court order for disclosure under subsection B or C may be issued by any court that is a court of competent jurisdiction and shall issue only if the governmental entity offers specific and articulable facts showing that there are reasonable grounds to believe that the contents of a wire or electronic communication or the records or other information sought are relevant and material to an ongoing criminal investigation. The NSA and companies involved under the PRISM program are in direct violation of the Third and Fourth Amendments and the Stored Communications Act. In April 2009, officials at the U.S. Department of Justice acknowledged that the NSA had engaged in large-scale over-collection of domestic communications in excess of federal intelligence courts' authority, but claimed that the acts were unintentional and had since been rectified. Well, now they are doing it intentionally. It has not been rectified. In August 2012, the New York Times published short documentaries by independent filmmakers entitled The Program, based on interviews with the whistleblower named William Binney, a designer of the NSA's Stellar Wind project. The project had been designed for foreign signals intelligence collection, but, Binney alleged, after the September 11, 2001 terrorist attacks, controls that limited unintentional collection of data pertaining to U.S. citizens were removed, prompting concerns by him and others that the actions were illegal and unconstitutional. Binney alleged that the Bluffdale facility in Utah was designed to store a broad range of domestic communications for data mining without warrants. Let's look at this for a second. This little card can hold at least 64 gigabytes of data. To put that into perspective, an entire floor of a library of books on shelves is equal to only 50 gigabytes. Now compare this to this. The data center is alleged to be able to hold a yottabyte of data. Now bear with me because these numbers are absolutely incredible. A yottabyte equals 1.2 septillion bytes of information, or a 1 with 24 zeros after it, or 257 plus trillion DVDs, or to put it into even better perspective, 5 quintillion books at 200 pages each. It is estimated that the total of all human knowledge created from the dawn of man to 2003 totaled only 5 exabytes of data, and it takes 1 million exabytes to equal a yottabyte. This is a lot of data to be spying only on potential terrorists. I guess that's why the Department of Homeland Security has deemed that Americans who believe their way of life is under attack, who are fiercely nationalistic, who consider themselves anti-global, who are suspicious of centralized federal authority, who are reverent of individual liberty, who are ex-military, who believe in conspiracy theories that involve grave threat to national sovereignty and or personal liberty, who are opposed to abortion and many others as potential terrorists. Even those who insist on using cash for monetary transactions, as well as those who show an interest in web privacy when using the internet in a public place, are considered as possible terrorist threats according to the Department of Homeland Security. The Department of Homeland Security educates the public that generic activities performed by millions of people every day, including using a video camera, talking to police officers, wearing hoodies, driving vans, writing on a piece of paper, and using a cell phone recording application, are all potential signs of terrorist activity. And take it back to this whole see something, say something campaign that they are pushing, and you can easily see the sticky situation that we are currently in. They are obviously covering themselves in order to be able to cover everybody. We thought this guy was a potential terrorist for being insert desired label here. It would appear that the TSA, the Transportation Security Administration, is also looking to nose in. From the Electronic Privacy Information Center on epic.org, headline August 9, 2013. TSA conducts warrantless searches outside of airports. The Transportation Security Administration has expanded its Visible Intermodal Prevention and Response, or VIPER, program to perform warrantless searches at various locations, including festivals, sporting events, and bus stations. The VIPER program uses risk-based profiling and behavior detection to search and detain individuals. Members of Congress have opposed these searches, and the Government Accountability Office, often called the Congressional Watchdog, which investigates how the federal government spends taxpayer dollars, has questioned the validity of the TSA's behavior detection and dispelled behavior detection effectiveness. This is all becoming way too obvious what they are doing to us, to divide and conquer, to create a snitch society and foment a nanny state that monitors and is involved in every aspect of your life. I almost hate to bring up George Orwell's satirical piece entitled 1984, but we are living it now. Big Brother is watching, and you take one step out of line, and you could be their next suspect. These things and a lot more are going on. Do some research on your own, and don't just take my word for it. You will learn much more by doing your own research and learning what your government is doing to you, and more importantly, what the government is doing to your family. I'm Terry Wayne George, and again, thank you for watching The Boneyard. I look forward to meeting you again in the next episode, and as always, if you don't concern yourself with your own freedom and liberty, then there are those who will certainly and happily take it from you.